Hey, what is up and what is going on, guys? It's Fearless, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to get the best FPS in Warzone possible, even on a good slash low end computer. Again, I do have a high end PC. My specs are down in the description, but without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so we're in the settings, we're in the graphics options. I'm gonna say this again just to make sure everyone knows I do have a high-end PC. I have a Ryzen 7 3800X with an RTX 2070 Super, so you gotta play around until you find the best settings for you, but these are the settings that I run, and I get around 120 FPS on 120 FOV. That said, we're gonna get straight into it. So first things first, we're gonna make our display mode full screen because it makes the game run a lot smoother and you'll get a lot more FPS in full screen versus windowed full screen. Then make sure it's on the correct monitor. This is my primary monitor, so it's gonna be number 1. Make sure your display adapter is your graphics card and not anything else. If you have 2 graphics cards in your computer, make sure it's just the better one. Honestly, that's probably the best bet. Then we're moving on to our refresh rate. I have a 144 hertz monitor, but if you have 60, try to stick with 60. Do not go below 60. Do not go to 50. I repeat, do not go to 50. It is terrible. Then we want our render resolution at 100. And sometimes if you guys have to restart Warzone when it does that whole update thing, just make sure you go into your settings and make sure that everything is the way it was. And if your game crashes and it asks to launch in safe mode, press no, because if you put it in safe mode, everything is just going to be turned all the way up. You guys can also put this to at least 110 if you have a high-end PC, but if you have a lower or medium-end computer, I would just stick with 100, and that's the best bet. Aspect ratio, just leave it on automatic. Please turn off VSync. It's not fun at all, literally. Now, custom frame rate, I have at 120 during the game when I'm actually loaded in to the Warzone. Main menu and out of focus. Out of focus, you want to keep about 30, and menu, you want about 60. So everything seems a lot smoother in the menus. Make sure you guys are turning off NVIDIA highlights because it will actually decrease your performance rather than improving it, which is weird, but if you're not having NVIDIA take control of your game and recording, like if you get 3 kills or 4 kills, it actually decreases your performance. Now, NVIDIA reflects low latency. You actually just want this enabled. You don't want the enabled boost because the enabled boost will actually decrease FPS as well, which is surprising because I have it on Cold War as enabled boost and I get really good frames, but we're just going to have this enabled. Display gamma is really just if you are on a monitor or TV. If you're on a monitor, then just have it RGB. If you're on a TV, run it at the BT. Moving down to streaming quality, we want this at normal. Low is if you don't have a lot of VRAM to actually use. So if you have a 4GB VRAM GPU, just make sure it's on low. But if you have anything higher than 4, make sure it's just on normal. It'll make the game a lot smoother and it'll look a lot cleaner. Texture resolution is really all up to you, but I have mine on low because I also do stream this game and I use it off stream and on stream. But if I really wanted to, for an RTX 2070 Super, I would probably say put this up to medium, nothing higher than medium for textures. Texture filtering I have on low. It doesn't really make a difference. You get a lot more frames than if you were to have it on medium or high. Particle quality is really all up to you, but if you are trying to have the best gaming experience and make sure that your games really nice looking, then you can turn this on to medium, but I leave mine on low. Bullet, impacts, and spray, you guys can have this enabled. It actually does not decrease your performance. A lot of people say that it does. It really doesn't. It actually makes the game a little bit more fun because you are seeing where bullets are going, and also you can see your sprays. And if you don't have this enabled, you won't see bullet impacts or sprays at all, which if you kind of get tricked with enemy sprays, then you can turn this off, but I just leave mine enabled. Then, of course, please have this on all. This will make everything look a lot better, a lot crisper, and honestly, it makes the map feel more realistic. If you have this off or low, the map kind of just looks a little demented, really. On-demand texture streaming, this is really all up to you, but again, if you really want high quality, then you can turn it up, but I like standard because high quality versus standard doesn't look really different per se, but again, up to you. Then we're going to go down to shadow and lighting. Shadow map resolution you need to have on low. If you have the shadows all the way up, you are going to have like 0 FPS. Honest to God, it fucks with my system, even having a good computer. Cache spot shadows doesn't really matter, but it will decrease about 5% of FPS that you would be getting. So I leave mine on disabled. And basically same thing with the sun. Particle lighting, I have mine on low, so that way if someone throws like a Molotov, then I will actually be able to see through that a little bit better rather than having it on high. If you're having it on high, you won't be able to see anything, but the game will look really, really nice. Now, ray tracing. If you don't have an RTX card, then don't even worry about this. Just skip past it. But ray tracing, just leave it on disabled unless, again, you want to make your game look as best as possible. Ambient inclusion, really up to you, but I leave mine on both. It makes the game look more clear and you get a lot more frames. But if you want to turn it down a little bit, you can. Screen space reflection, just turn this off. It honestly doesn't do anything, and you're probably going to be losing 2% of your frames, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is depending on your system. Now, the post-processing effects. Turn your film grain off, because this is probably the worst thing any game could add. And when you're scoping down, you basically will be able to see a lot more clear. NVIDIA DLSS, turn this off. You lose so many frames. Anti-aliasing, make sure that it's SMAA ×2, because this is the best anti-aliasing. But if you do have a smaller rig, I would definitely say just turn this off completely. Depth of view, turn off. You don't need it unless, again, you want to make your game look as beautiful as possible. World blur and weapon blur, just disable them, and it will make your game so much better, and you'll be getting a lot more frames. And you'll actually be able to see a lot more enemies whenever they are running by, versus when you do have this on, it is kind of weird, but you do also lose frames from these two. Film grain, again, same thing. It's really just making sure that your game is 100% more clear. If you do turn this on, your game will kind of look grainy. But if with it off, everything will look a lot more clearer. Dynamic resolution, just turn it off. It doesn't really do anything other than decrease your performance. And same thing with the frame target. Just leave it at 60 or turn it off. We are actually going to go over to the general tab and just look at what I have. Again, this is personal preference, but this is the best thing for me and my monitor. I have a FOV of 120. It's really up to you. If you have a smaller rig, please turn that down to at least 100. 100 should be perfect, and it's a lot more easier on low-end computers. Brightness is 54 for me. This kind of just depends on your monitor. Play around with it. Now, your HUD display. You can turn this down to 25 for both of these, but it's really up to you. I leave mine at 100. It just works better for my monitor. And this stuff doesn't really matter, but subtitles. Now, a lot of people don't have subtitles actually enabled, but they're actually a good thing. And the reason being is if your audio kind of seems a little low, and you don't hear like an enemy UAV get called in, that will actually pick it up and you'll be able to see that. Colorblind type doesn't really matter unless you're colorblind. And sometimes in certain games, colorblind modes actually make the game more vibrant. And you can go online and find a colorblind test and you can kind of see where you are. Now, your minimap, make sure that it's squared because you see a lot more on the map. In this picture, of course, you see a lot more of the map and it's just bigger. Now, minimap rotation, you can have on or you can turn it off. It's really personal preference. But having it enabled is really nice because then your minimap's kind of moving with you. Now, your compass, again, really all up to you, but I just have letters. It's easier. It's faster. Now, kill feed, honestly, this is all up to you. This doesn't decrease performance whatsoever. It's just the kill feed. So no difference right there. Most of this stuff down here doesn't really matter, but if you do want to see your frames per second and all of this good stuff, which you can see in the top left of my screen, that's what it'll show. In games, you'll actually be able to see your latency, and when you're spectating someone, you'll actually be able to see their latency as well, which is kind of cool. But anyways, guys, that's been it for this video. Thank you. Please drop a like, subscribe if you guys haven't already, and as always, stay fearless.